You're about to watch an episode of Juicebox TV. Thank you very much for watching. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the bell if you enjoy. Cheers, we appreciate it a lot. Good evening, mate.
Yeah.
How are you?
Hey man, all good, thank you. How about you? How you doing?
Yeah, all right. I mean, you already know this because I told you it, but yeah, I'm doing all right. Please introduce yourself in your own words and what you do and all that. That would be lovely. Completely.
Sure. So my name's Aaron. I'm the campaign manager for Big Indie Records, which is an American independent record label and music publisher.
Nice. I'm curious, and how did you manage to, because it's American, are they American based here or are they based in America and it's all like remotely and you make contact?
We have two bases, I guess. So we were founded in Austin, in Texas, by a woman called Jacqueline Scripps, who's an incredible person. So she founded it in Austin, and then quite soon after that point, they wanted to open up a London office.
Nice.
And then about a year after that is when I joined.
That's actually a good move. I mean, like looking at the label itself and like the complete like diverse range of acts you got, I wouldn't even got, because I mean, forgive me if I'm being arrogant, but I think it's like predominantly British, at least from what I know, because I'm fans of Buzzard and Childcare as it is. Like I love them.
Yeah.
So I had no idea it came from across the ocean.
Yeah. So a lot of those, and it's been really beneficial to our British acts. I think a lot of those were from a kind of a singles program that we did to get more established within the British market. So I'm glad that's worked. If the perception is lots of British bands, so with like Buzzard, we did a single with them, and they went on to sign to Communion Records, which is going quite well for them at the moment. Similarly, Childcare did a single with us, and then went on to sign to Entertainment One Records. So yeah, we did quite a few of these singles, and a lot of them were in a place where they were playing South by Southwest, the festival, in a similar time, which is based in Austin.
Yeah.
So we were able to, or when it wasn't cancelled, we were able to offer a bit of value on that side of the pond as well for the UK artists. But yeah, we have American artists as well.
Yeah.
Our primary one historically, I guess, is the guy called Outgrow, who's done particularly well, but he's not so well known in the UK. He's great. He's not with us right now, but we released his first two EPs, and they've done really well. He's an incredible artist. Our current, I guess, focus artists, two of them are over here in the UK. There's Rosehip Tea House in Wales. There's a rapper called Vic Santoro who's doing incredibly well right now. And then our other focus artist is a band called The Bots, and they're in LA. So it's definitely still US and UK. It's not so stacked to the UK.
That's a good little blend. I mean, I was checking out, because I was going through the websites, checking out the other towns he had. I was listening to Vic last night. I was enjoying it. Didn't he drop the other week, last week? By the time
we've dropped a single today, to be fair. But yeah, the releases we've stacked them so that it's almost like constant releases from February to July. Really, it's a strong campaign. So yeah, he probably did some drop. What did he drop? Oh yeah, we dropped a freestyle last week.
That's it, yeah.
Then it's a single. Then the second part of his mixtape comes out in a few weeks' time.
This kind of goes to one of the questions that I had. How hands-on is it with the artists then? Is it like you guys going, okay, here's what we're going to do, or do you allow that like real collaboration from artist to label? Because obviously the indie label, I feel like there's less restraint on the artist to hit a quota, and you can like sort of have that synergy. I'm wondering.
Yeah, it's absolutely a collaboration. You're completely right, especially with Vic. Vic is incredibly intelligent. He knows what he wants. He's very good at marketing himself. Like when we get the opportunity to, we kind of, instead of me selling Vic through, we try to get him to sell himself.
That kind of segues into a question I had planned for later on, but you totally just mentioned it there, which I think is great. It's the fact that the artists can sell themselves, like without the need of a team, completely from like their own creative outlet. Because I think it's a misconception where labels do it all for you. Sometimes it's more so the labels are giving you like the hand up more so than the hand in, you know. They're not going to give you everything. Like there has to be a give and take. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, you're right. I mean, you can, as a label, we can't really like create the artist, if that makes sense.
Yes, yeah.
Or we can't create the message that the artist is giving. So Vic is the perfect example, where recently we've been really focused on artists who kind of have a story that makes it more about the music.
Yeah.
And like the most recent stats with Spotify are that they're receiving 55,000 or 60,000 tracks a day on average. So like if you consider that everyone's trying to go through the same door, and the vast majority of those people are kind of going through that door saying, like, hey, I have really good music, which sure, it could be really good music, that's great, but like, how does that differentiate from everybody else? So what we try to do is kind of take an artist that has a message and has a story, or something that differentiates them from everyone else. Obviously their music has to be incredible as well, and then we help the artist to be able to communicate that correctly and in the right way. Because at the same time, you don't want to reveal all of your story all at once. For example, you want to kind of take your fans or new fans along on a journey. So yeah, if you as an artist don't know what that message is or what that story is, then it's quite difficult for someone to kind of create that story around you, if that makes sense.
Totally. No, I agree with that. It's like, and also I feel like maybe sometimes some, especially new bands that play at venues like the Horn or whatever, I feel like sometimes they may put like an unnecessary pressure on themselves to get to that level, like right off the get-go, but that's just not how it works. Like you should dick about and other Arctic Monkeys for a bit first, I feel, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, just experimenting is a good thing.
Yeah. It's
especially when you're like quite a new band, just do whatever the hell you want. People don't care. And maybe not, people don't care, people do care.
People do care.
But if you're just starting out as a band, if it's only kind of, if you're at an early stage of a band and only your friends are aware of you, then you can experiment, do whatever the hell you like, because the wider population of the UK, let's say, aren't aware of you.
Yeah.
So you can make mistakes, you can do stuff wrong and keep going and going and going. And then maybe something ridiculous might hit home. And then once, because it's really easy to see, once people start paying attention to you, you can be like, oh, okay, let's keep trying that. And that's how, that's how the momentum starts building.
I'm wondering, was there any, because obviously you still work with Juicebox, I wasn't actually aware of until like the other day when Luke told me. So I'm wondering then, like, seeing all these local acts, how did your time at Juicebox working as an event manager, how did that sort of aid in your development into like the stepping stone into becoming into big indie? I'm wondering.
Yeah, so I think like working in live in general, and particularly with Juicebox, I mean, I worked at the Horn alongside a couple of other venues occasionally, but mostly at the Horn. And you've got an independent venue, which is relatively small in the grand scheme of things, but I like to think it's punching above its weight loads of the time, mostly thanks to Juicebox, because it's almost kind of put itself on the map for touring artists at a certain level. Like some of the bands I've seen there should have been playing bigger venues probably, but because of the location of the Horn and because of the booking credibility, it's been very, very impressive. So because of that, I feel like it's been really valuable in terms of getting an understanding of the industry as a whole. Like running events there, a band or an artist could be on tour and their representative or their team coming down could be a tour manager, like the artist manager, occasionally the record label rep, a booking agent, and like talking to all of these people and the artists is like a perfect first step into the industry, because you get all of these different sides. And I mean, the most important part of working in the industry is being able to talk to artists and being able to work with them, and also have an understanding and being able to talk about the business side of things as well. Because a lot of the time they're very, very different, where you've got the creative side over here with the artists and the very, very business side of record labels or booking agents or anything like that, publishers, whatever. And to be able to bridge that gap I feel like, yeah, live is a very good way of doing that, or having a first step into. For a little bit of context, I got fed up with my sales job or whatever I was doing at the time. It was awful, um, and was kind of figuring out how I could kind of transition into the music industry, I guess.
Yeah.
And the first step into that was doing shows, running shows at the Horn for Juicebox while I was still doing my sales job in the day. I would finish that and then go and do shows in the evening for the Horn. I did the Horn for a couple of years while I was also doing a music business degree. So I had the sales job, managed to quit the sales job, do a music business degree, master's degree. And that was kind of when I was like, okay, I don't know if it's going to work, but I need to take a year out to try and make it happen. And maybe 4 months into the music business degree, I started kind of as an internship with Big Indie, because they were looking for someone who had a good understanding of the music industry in general, but also had kind of experience with live as well and running shows, because we were running shows at the time. So it was a perfect fit. And then gradually, as the trust built up, I kind of took on more and more responsibilities and got here, I guess.
I feel like there's a big misconception when people think indie label. They don't think like obviously cheap, but they don't think it will be like as beneficial as say like a major record deal or whatever. It's not the case. I've really learned that more recently, is seeing how like indie labels operate, especially seeing how big indie operate. Now that I know it's like from America overseas to here, I'm curious then, like, how do you operate then in terms of like recording and publishing, and also just like within the industry as a whole?
Without going too much into our budgets or anything, our budget. No, it's not a problem. I'm obviously not going to go throwing around figures or anything, but our budget is minuscule compared to the majors.
Sure. Yeah.
So Universal, Sony, and Warner, and to a certain extent, to a lesser extent, B&G, and even the larger independents like Domino and Beggars and Dirty Hit and Communion, who are kind of an indie but have more and more relationships with the majors as they go on. They are much more established and have much more of an ability to put a huge amount of spend on an artist, which is good for certain artists. Like, we wouldn't be able to take on an artist who wanted to be kind of the level of Beyonce, for example.
Right. Yeah.
Because that sort of artist needs that spend, like a ridiculous amount of spend, to be competing at that sort of level in the pop world, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
In a way, we're quite frugal, and unfortunately we're not able to sign everyone that we want to.
Well, yeah,
obviously, because we're limited to an extent. Like, we don't have the funds that a major has, but because of that, we're very holistic, and we take the approach that we need to massively make the most out of every release that we do.
Yeah.
And also it means that we have to keep experimenting and trying to find these different ways of making revenue. Streaming is very difficult to make money from. We are in a good position where we have an artist in Outgrow who streams exceptionally well. But to keep doing that consistently with artist to artist is incredibly difficult. So we are extremely different to a major, but there's a difference in that. Like, if an artist gets signed to a major label, that's great in terms of credibility, and majors are very good at what they do when they give an artist attention. But because the majors are so focused on market share, effectively, is how their revenue is driven, they kind of try to sign as many people as possible to bump up that market share. So where the problem with that is that lots of people get shelved, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Where if you get signed by a major and you don't get the attention that you need for the growth of an artist, that's really difficult. Unless you have someone who's a real advocate for you in that major company, it's really difficult to get attention. It's really difficult to use the resources that the majors have,
Yeah,
because they're so focused on the artist that they're kind of expecting to be really successful or are already successful, if that makes sense. So at least when you go to an independent, whether it's us or a much bigger independent,
Yeah.
Much larger independent, I should say,
Right.
at least you know you're gonna it's funny because we're our name is from like the goal that we have. So
Yeah.
we want to be a big independent label. We know we're not there yet. So in a way, it's quite ironic that we're called Big Indie, because there are plenty more independent labels who are much bigger than us. But that's fine. I fully believe that we will get there. But if an artist signs to an independent label, they have much more likelihood of getting attention and getting kind of the entire amount of resource and passion that the label is able to give.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Totally.
So there's nothing wrong with the majors when they're giving an artist attention. And yes, independents have their fallbacks and that they're not going to have budgets as big as the majors. But for some bands, they don't need those huge budgets.
Yeah, no, I mean, right at the start there, you mentioned Dirty Hit. And now that actually, I was thinking about it when you mentioned that, and I think about how big the shows of the likes on 1975 and Wolf Alice are, like people on that label. And it's just like, that's a lot of money on them, even if they're not the biggest pop act in the world. Like their shows, 75 show at least, they're insane scope. Like 3 nights of the O2 with like, all these lights and visuals and it's just like, I don't know. It's insane. It's insane how deceptively powerful some people are, but also with that, and it's something I'm quite curious of now that you mentioned it, how like some artists don't need all that money. Is there ever a point where an artist would outgrow an indie label? Like, would it be their job to say, we're getting a better deal, we're looking for it, or would it be for you to say, like, you don't need us anymore, we can make room?
It's funny because Dirty Hit is a perfect example of that sort of situation, except it's more collaborative from their perspective, where, as far as I know from hearing about Dirty Hit, they were kind of conceived from the management of 1975. I've forgotten his name, which is really annoying. The guy who
Jamie
runs Dirty Hit.
Osborne, I want to say.
He was the manager of 1975. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, Jamie Osborne. He managed 1975, and no one wanted to sign the 1975. So they kept going round and round and round, and was like, no one's signing us, so let's just do it ourselves. With, as far as I know, very little money to bring it back to the budget conversation. And because the artist became successful, I mean, Dirty Hit is effectively funded from the success that the 1975 has had.
Yeah.
And sure, maybe they've had other funding and deals aside from that, but it all stemmed from the success of one artist. Whether or not that artist could outgrow the label if the person running the label wasn't their manager, probably. If it was someone completely different and they started on a small label and had a similar growth trajectory, yeah, it probably would have been in their benefit to go to a major or one of the bigger independents. But because they had such a close relationship with the manager and effectively started Dirty Hit as a band themselves, you've got this really cool story of how one artist's success has started to bring up a lot of other artists as well. Like you see Biba Doobie doing incredibly well right now. You've got the Japanese House, you've got Wolf Alice, and suddenly you've got probably, I think, I mean, when it comes to comparing where we are as a label compared to the other larger independents, we're only 5 years old. The people like Domino and Beggars Group and Communion, they've all been around for like 15 to 20 years.
Yeah.
But Dirty Hit is the perfect example of an independent label coming about. I think they were founded in 2008 or something, which statistically is literally the worst time to start a label in terms of like music industry revenues, because it absolutely tanked after that point.
Wow.
Or just before that point. So they're an amazing model to look at, but it's very different to how a label would usually grow.
I never really truly thought about the power of one artist. Now that can completely, even if that artist is affiliated and was sort of part of the semi-creation of it, I think the only other example I can think of would be The Weeknd and his XO brand, like the one that he just made out of boredom, ended up becoming a whole phenomenon basically. And then I think he's on Republic. I think was he with at the time? Now he is at least. Now it's like the XO, that little logo he drew is now like it's on hats, it's a label. There's a whole bunch of R&B people on his label because he just made it. And I think that kind of goes back to the start, the whole idea of like knowing your story and how to sell yourself. It can really pay off if you do it right, and especially if a label can really back you up in that.
A lot of the time, it kind of relates to another question that you wanted to ask, but a lot of the time, when it comes to working with a label, the people are almost not more important, but just as important as the terms of the deal, if that makes sense. So if you could sign an incredible deal with a massive label and they give you loads of money and whatever, but if you don't have the people who are passionate about your project and really care about you and the growth of your artistry, then that's not going to be valuable to you in the long term. So, and same for independents as well. Like if an artist is talking with independents and they think, oh, this label is just trying to sign me because they want to have the clout of my growth or something, and they don't really care about the project, then that's not a good relationship with a label. It has to be equal in how much people are gonna work really, really hard to make that artist successful. As much as the artist is going to do themselves.
Yeah, I feel like it's another, like, I don't know, I shouldn't be the one giving advice here, but I feel like it could be a good tip to give to artists. Is like, don't jump into it. Don't think, oh, label, and do it, because like, ultimately if the vision, and it's not like, it's not a case of them being like dicks or anything. If the vision's not there, it's best just to not. Otherwise, it's not going to end well for anyone involved, and it's going to be a waste of time for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. There's no need to work with the label for the sake of it. Like, sure, if an artist is in kind of a beginning period, it might be quite flattering to receive an offer from a label. Yeah. But if the artist doesn't know what they want or what they need, then how are they going to be able to judge whether a label can provide that for them? Whether it's a label, I should say that lots of distributors are now giving very similar deals to a label. And there are loads of funding options as well. There's not really a need to go with the label if there's no value being added to your project. It's as soon as you get signed, that's when the hard work starts. It's not when you can like stop doing everything you're doing because you've got a label now. And it's the same with management as well. It's like you pick up a manager or a manager brings you on board. It's not like you can sit back and say, oh yeah, the manager is going to do all my work for me. It's exactly the same with the label. If you're signing to a label, there's going to be a higher expectation of how hard you should be working.
Yeah.
Because you have people now businesses investing money into you, people spending a lot of their time trying to make it work as an artist. So yeah, absolutely, you're completely right.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I was trying to get there at the start when I said that, like, there should be a checklist. They should be a checklist. Jesus, there should be a checklist for artists going in before they even dare consider maybe reaching out or like labels coming to them. I feel there should be just like a criteria of, okay, can I do it alone as I am right now? Is it really needed at this point in my career, or is it just for the sake of it, just to say I'm on a label, you know?
Yeah, completely. I mean, sadly, I don't think there's ever going to be a concrete absolute list, but yeah, know what you're hoping to get from a label. If you're going to be signed, if you want to be signed, know what the needs and goals of the band or the artist are before you enter into those discussions, because then you can judge how good that label is for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, kind of like I mentioned earlier, the people are just important as the deal. You can have an incredible deal, not the right people, and yeah, you need to have the right people working on your project. And at the end of the day, if like an artist is their project, the other people who get built around it, like a manager or a label or a booking agent or whatever, they're just they should be there to add value to what the artist is doing. That's the artistry is the core.
Yes.
of all of these bits that go around it. And sure, I personally think it might be a bit biased coming from a label perspective, but a label is quite versatile in what they do in terms of, I mean, a label, the way we operate, I mean, we fund radio campaigns and press campaigns and digital marketing campaigns, and where it's needed, help people getting a booking agent or a manager if needed, or we sometimes do management when it's needed. So it's a lot more holistic than those specialty areas, if that makes sense. But at the end of the day, it's still the artist and their vision and their goals, which is most important, because it's what we're trying to kind of take from them and just make it bigger, basically.
Yeah, totally. I think that should be the goal, is just like make art. And especially when I see like the artists on your label, it's all so clear and concise to me, and it translates so well. So I guess like thank you for putting them on there, because I like them.
No, of course. I mean, yeah, we love them as well. And even when we're at that time, when we were working with people like Childcare and Buzzards, we were very happy to be kind of an incubator label, if that makes sense, where we were almost encouraging being a bit of a stepping stone. Like, hey, do a single with us and then potentially use that as leverage for whoever else you're talking to, which in hindsight is a little bit annoying, because I would have loved to work with Childcare longer term or Buzzards longer term, but we're at a stage now in 2021 where we have our artists to work with long term. And I think it's going to work. It's very exciting.
I just noticed we're going for a hot minute, and also, as people might tell watching this, my Wi-Fi has been shocking today, so I'm not going to keep you in limbo any longer. I'm going to chuck as the last question real quick, and that is really just to promote the label, any releases, anything at all. Please just chuck it my way, because I want to know about it, and I'm sure people listening want to know about it too.
Part 2 of Vic Santoro's Glory Day mixtape will be out in 2 weeks. And at some point in the next few months, we will be releasing an album with The Bots, who are incredible. They have a ridiculous touring history. They've supported people like Tenacious D and Blur.
Wow.
Played all over the world. Coachella, Soundsphere in Japan, something like that. I don't know, Glastonbury, Reading and Leeds. They've done it all. They were very young when they did it, but now we're kind of bringing them back after a few years after their album. And then keep an eye out for what Rosehip Tea House are doing as well.
Yeah, I want to dip. I haven't listened to them yet, but I just looked at photos and like the aesthetic, and I'm really drawn to that. There's a certain part of me that really wants me to check them out, so I want to get on that too.
That is my favorite part about Rosehip Tea House, aside from like the music. Their aesthetic is incredible. Their manager is a very talented photographer called Adam, and we get all of the images from him. Combining, like, yeah, they're incredible. We love them.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that a lot. Right, okay, I'm gonna let you go for good now. I'm gonna set you up a better Wi-Fi instead of being stuck in this prison that I've put you in.